Joypad.com bring you another original. It's fucking great.
The Red Solstice. It's an evocative title. I pictured a barren and stormy night on the Red Planet, dust billowing in my face and nothing but the howl of the wind to let me know that I'm still alive. The Red Solstice doesn't disappoint in any regard. It's an atmospheric, claustrophobic struggle from the second that you start. Ironward have been working on the Red Solstice for a while, and Mouse and Joypad previewed the game last year. Now I, for one, am more than happy with the progress the project has made. In its simplest form, the Red Solstice is an action strategy RPG style of game, but it's so much more than that. You'll take control of a space marine who's been tasked with a mission on Mars, mankind's new home. It's not really a new premise, but Ironward make no excuses for making Mars their setting, and the plot is unashamedly inspired by any number of science fiction movies over the last 40 years. That's not a criticism. I think that the Red Solstice is better for it. The inclusion of the Red Planet ushers forth a fantastic atmosphere, one of unease at being so far from the comforting caress of the home that we all know and love. The Red Solstice is a punishing title, and it makes no claim to being anything other than a hardcore, ball-crushingly difficult game. After reading the notes from the developer specifically suggesting that I should try the single-player campaign for at least the first couple of levels, I decided that I'd played enough top-down strategy games that I didn't need my hand held, so I jumped straight into a skirmish mission. It was about a minute into this game that I realised that I did, in fact, want my hand held. The vast array of weapons, perks and ammo types was a clear indication that I was in over my head. Needless to say that the first enthusiastic but rubbish attempt left me with an inkling that the Red Solstice wasn't messing around. The single player campaign acts as the Red Solstice's tutorial. The first mission gives you all of the basics that you'll need with very little risk to you and your squad. Halfway through the second mission, the training wheels come off, and you're thrust into as much fast-paced action and frantic clicking as is humanly possible. There's so much depth in the game that I was in genuine fear of drowning, but with a little perseverance and patience, the pieces all start to fall into place. The minute-to-minute gameplay has one of the most overbearing and pressurised atmospheres that I've played outside of a dedicated survival horror game, but to be fair to the Red Solstice, it's not much of a stretch to say that it is a survival horror game. You control a 4-man team and have to navigate your way through a huge map in order to achieve various objectives. That's all pretty standard stuff. After the very brief run through on how to play the game, the Red Solstice doesn't give you any other guidelines. A vague waypoint will be all that you're offered, and the rest is up to you. As you play, killing enemies, picking up energy and generally just surviving, you'll unlock upgrade points for your squad. These can, and have to, be used during the missions to make sure that your soldiers don't get overwhelmed. Upgrades include specific class skills like calling in an airstrike, healing teammates, close combat moves or special attacks. These skills are vital to your prolonged survival, and any player who doesn't upgrade won't be hanging around for too long. There's a whole bunch of environmental factors that can aid you in the game, from barricades and sentry guns for defence, to explosive barrels and power generators to help you advance. The dynamic of any level can change quickly during play, and the tactical mode becomes invaluable. Now, the tactical mode will slow time to 1/10 speed, and it allows you to issue commands to each member of your team individually, as opposed to the normal mode, in which case all you can do is issue follow or stay commands. The gameplay is so fast paced in the Red Solstice that if you neglect to use the tactical mode, then you won't be lasting long. Just in case you thought all of that sounded easy, your soldiers have limited ammo, and I do mean limited. There are ammo dumps dotted around the map, but these can often be quite far off the mission's path or quite far away. Conserving ammo is essential, so setting your character to auto-aim might sound like a good plan, but it's best only to do it when absolutely necessary. Scavenging is a big part of the gameplay, and there's a ton of buildings that I scoured through looking for ammo, weapons and other useful items. There's no worse feeling than having a swarm of enemies bearing down on you and watch as the ammo counter reads 000. After each successful mission, Any experience points roll over to the next, which will allow you to upgrade your squad's stats like health and armour, movement speed, damage, and so on. Once again, there's a lot of choice available when upgrading and equipping your loadout, so you'll have to intuit a fair bit of it, but anyone familiar with similar style of games should be able to muddle their way through without too many problems. There's something almost Lovecraftian to the game, something that always played in the back of my mind. The environments provoke a real sense of unease, and the sparse lighting only exacerbates this feeling until it started to really play tricks with my mind. Vision is limited and flashing red dots on the map are the only indication of what you'll face. The enemies are legion. Most of the time, for the early stages at least, I find myself fighting zombie-like creatures, people mutated by a virus that turns everything into a bioengineered killing machine. But the real horror vibe hits with some of the bigger enemies. Scuttling horrors and fleshy atrocities lurk in the dark on the Red Planet. And suddenly, 4 heavily armed and highly trained space marines seem all too vulnerable. The organic nature of the horrors pull at sources like H.R. Geiger, and it imparts a Lovecraftian dread that far exceeds what the Red Solstice could offer with its hammy dialogue and almost B-movie story. I think the Iron Word have deliberately not taken themselves too seriously in their approach to the game, and in doing so, have managed to do something spectacular. The Red Solstice feels like a cult classic already. If it were a person, it would be sneaking downstairs in the middle of the night to watch back-to-back video nasties. The real replay value comes from the multiplayer, but I only got the chance for a couple of cooperative missions. The gameplay is pretty much the same as a single player, except you only control one trooper and there's no tactical mode. The experience is reliant on being with a good and coordinated team, so waiting to be matched up with random players will be a complete crapshoot. Multiplayer mode will put you and your comrades on a map and provide you with semi-random objectives while you fight off a constant stream of progressively more horrific enemies. Troops can be upgraded in the same way as the single player, and new armour types can be unlocked, which works as a class selection. It's great when you're with a good team, working together and keeping things tightly controlled, but all it takes is one Leroy Jenkins to ruin the whole game, something that I found happened in most of the games that I played. The Red Solstice is a great game. Against all odds, it has a weight and gravitas akin to movies like Aliens, and it will always be stored in the deep, dark corner of my psyche where such things dwell. It is unashamedly difficult, and it won't even look up as you beg for help. The Red Solstice doesn't welcome newcomers very well, for it has an uncaring heart, but fans of high-pressure strategy games can't afford to miss this one out. There's a menacing and unsettling tone to the Red Solstice that creates tension in the unknown, and in the immortal words of H.P. Lovecraft, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. The Red Solstice is a title that has a gravitas and a weight far in excess of what it should. The story and voice acting has a true B-movie vibe and can come off as a bit hammy. The Red Solstice can afford to poke fun at itself in this area, as the oppressive and atmospheric gameplay more than compensates for any perceived shortcomings it might have. It has a brilliant artistic design, and players will be on the multiplayer mode for a long time to come. In the beginning, it can be confusing to equip and upgrade your squad, but once you realise that you are the hunted and play accordingly, the Red Solstice becomes a fantastic experience.